When Meri Brown walked into that courtroom, nobody expected the silence she had carried for decades to finally shatter. For years, she kept her head down, stayed loyal, and swallowed the pain while Kody and Robyn built a fortress around themselves. But in that moment, everything changed. Her voice cut through the room like thunder, and suddenly the truth could no longer be ignored. At the center of it all was a staggering revelation, a $1.2 million financial lie that Robyn had worked so hard to bury. The very foundation of Kody and Robyn's so-called love story began to crumble, exposed under the harsh lights of the courtroom. It wasn't just about the money. It was about betrayal stacked on betrayal. Years of favoritism, manipulation, and secrets finally coming into the open. As Meri laid out the truth, the walls of their carefully built empire started collapsing. The courtroom was tense, filled with gasps and whispers, and all eyes turned to Robyn. The cracks showed immediately. She broke down under the pressure, tears and panic spilling out as the evidence piled higher and higher against her and Kody, and then came the judge's final strike. With words that cut deeper than any argument from the wives, the verdict landed squarely on Kody's shoulders. The man who had once claimed control over every decision, every dollar, every wife, was suddenly stripped bare. What had once been his authority now looked like desperation, and for the first time in years, Meri stood in power. Hi friends, I'm Sophia, and welcome back to TLC's Sister Wives world. This is the moment we've all been waiting for, the turning point that changed everything. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss the truth behind Sister Wives, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this the justice Meri deserved, or do you think it came too late? Stay with me until the end, because this story only gets. Meri was the one he thought would never turn against him, the one he assumed would always stay quiet. And yet, here she was, tearing down the image he had spent years protecting. It was a moment of pure reversal. The wife he once dismissed as weak became the very voice that threatened to destroy everything. This was Meri's breakthrough. The silence was gone, and in its place stood a woman who had nothing left to lose, and everything to reveal. The tension in that courtroom reached a whole new level the moment the financial documents came out. For years, fans of Sister Wives had speculated about where the family's money was really going, but nothing could prepare anyone for the cold, hard truth that landed in front of the judge. The number was staggering, $1.2 million. That was the amount tied directly to Robyn and Kody, hidden away while the rest of the family struggled to keep their lives together. And when those receipts were laid out, you could almost hear the air leave the room. Meri's testimony had already shaken the ground, but this was the earthquake. Page after page showed transfers, property deals, and accounts that painted a very different picture from the "we're all equal" story Kody had fed his wives for years. Instead of fairness, the records exposed favoritism at its most brutal. Robyn, the so-called last wife, the one Kody defended endlessly, had been protected and provided for while the others were left scrambling. You could see it on Robyn's face the second those papers were revealed. Her eyes filled with panic, her body stiffened, and suddenly the tears began. This wasn't the crying we'd seen on the show when she wanted Kody's sympathy. This was the raw breakdown of someone cornered by facts. And for Kody, the mask started to slip. He shifted in his seat, jaw tight, unable to hide the anger boiling under the surface. The wives had long claimed that money was funneled unfairly, that their sacrifices were ignored while Robyn was handed security. And here it was, in black and white. This wasn't just gossip or suspicion anymore, it was evidence. Christine and Janelle had spoken about this imbalance for years, but now a judge had the documents in hand. That changed everything. What made this moment so powerful wasn't just the size of the number, it was the betrayal behind it. $1.2 million wasn't just money, it was trust stolen, futures denied, and years of loyalty trampled on. For Meri, Christine, and Janelle, this was proof that their pain wasn't imagined. And for viewers like us, it was the moment we'd been waiting for, the undeniable confirmation that favoritism wasn't just emotional, it was financial. The courtroom was no longer Kody's arena. The evidence had stripped him bare, and everyone could see the empire for what it really was, a house built on lies. Christine's testimony was the turning point that nobody saw coming, and yet, in hindsight, it made perfect sense. She had walked away from Kody long before this courtroom showdown, reclaiming her independence and refusing to be silenced anymore. But what she brought to the stand wasn't just her personal heartbreak, it was a lifetime of evidence, laid bare with the honesty and confidence that fans had grown to love her for. From the moment she began speaking, the atmosphere shifted. Christine didn't stumble over her words or second-guess herself. She looked directly at the judge, her voice steady, and she confirmed what Meri had already begun to expose. This wasn't about bitterness. This was about truth. Christine detailed how money flowed into the family, how promises were made about shared property and equality, promises that never reached her or her children. Instead, she watched as every resource seemed to circle back to Robyn's side of the family. One of the most powerful moments was when Christine recalled her final years in the marriage. She admitted that the emotional neglect had been crushing, but the financial betrayal was what opened her eyes completely. She shared how discussions about buying homes or supporting her children's needs were brushed off, while Robyn's household always seemed to have resources waiting. These weren't just accusations, they matched perfectly with the $1.2 million evidence sitting before the judge. Kody couldn't hide his frustration. As Christine spoke, his face tightened, and he leaned back in his chair, clearly struggling to contain himself. Robyn, already shaken from the financial documents, visibly crumbled as Christine's words cut deeper. The courtroom wasn't just hearing ex-wife anger. They were hearing patterns, corroboration, and undeniable consistency between Meri's story and Christine's. What made Christine's testimony so devastating was her credibility. She wasn't just speaking for herself, she was speaking for the years of manipulation that every wife, at some point, had felt. And unlike Kody, who often twisted narratives to fit his image, Christine had nothing left to lose. Her strength came from walking away, and that gave her words weight. By the time Christine stepped down, the momentum had completely shifted. The picture was no longer of one disgruntled wife making claims. It was of a system built on lies and favoritism, revealed by two women who had lived it and now stood united. This was no longer just Meri's fight. Christine had made it clear, this was a pattern, and the truth was undeniable. If Meri brought the emotion and Christine brought the fire, Janelle brought the receipts. Known for her level-headed, practical nature, Janelle's testimony was less about heartbreak and more about cold, hard facts. She had always been the one to manage finances, budget, and long-term planning in the family, so when she took the stand, the entire courtroom leaned in. If anyone could untangle the chaos of Kody's financial web, it was Janelle. From the very beginning, she laid it out in her calm but razor-sharp way. Janelle spoke about how money that was supposed to be shared for the family's benefit, property purchases, household needs, children's expenses, consistently disappeared into Robyn's side of the family. She described how discussions about securing homes for the older kids were ignored, while Robyn's household had brand new properties bought under Kody's name. And unlike emotional testimony, Janelle backed her words with spreadsheets, contracts, and timelines. The impact was devastating. With the $1.2 million already exposed, Janelle's evidence connected the dots. It showed exactly how resources were diverted and how favoritism wasn't just emotional but financial policy. Every time Kody tried to interrupt or roll his eyes, the judge shut him down, reminding him that Janelle was presenting verifiable information. What made her words even more powerful was the balance she carried. Janelle didn't shout. She didn't accuse with venom. Instead, she calmly presented fact after fact, number after number, until the entire courtroom saw the picture with brutal clarity. Her testimony transformed the case from, he said, she said, into undeniable proof of financial mismanagement, and it wasn't just about money. Janelle also revealed the emotional toll, how being forced to live with uncertainty while watching Robyn enjoy stability broke down the trust that once held the family together. She admitted that staying loyal for so long wasn't about love anymore, but about survival and holding on to the hope that things might change. Kody sat stiff in his chair, his arms folded, his jaw tight. Robyn, already shaken from her breakdown earlier, clutched tissues, her face pale. The air was thick, almost suffocating, as everyone waited for the judge to speak. You could feel the weight of years of manipulation, favoritism, lies, and betrayal, pressing down on this one moment. The judge didn't waste words. He recapped what had been laid out, the $1.2 million discrepancy, the favoritism that drained the family's shared resources, the emotional and financial betrayals suffered by Meri, Christine, and Janelle. He acknowledged the testimonies not as angry rants or personal grudges, but as evidence, clear, factual, and consistent. And then he turned his eyes to Kody. The silence in that room was heavy as the judge told him plainly. His behavior was reckless, selfish, and destructive to the very family he claimed to lead. The words cut through whatever mask Kody had left. And then came the strike, the ruling that the financial maneuvers favoring Robyn's household were not only unjust but legally unsound. The judge ordered restitution, dividing assets fairly among all parties, and made it clear that Kody's control over the family's shared resources was over. Robyn broke. Tears poured down her face as she realized the empire she and Kody had built was no longer untouchable. For years, she had been the center of security while the other wives and children struggled. Now that fortress was dismantled brick by brick, right there in front of her. For Meri, Christine, and Janelle, it wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition. About finally having the truth spoken out loud, not just whispered in frustration behind closed doors. They weren't invisible anymore. They weren't silenced. The courtroom gave them what they had been denied for years, validation and justice. The gavel struck, and in that instant, the story shifted forever. Kody's authority had been shattered not by force, but by the very voices he tried to suppress. And for the sister wives audience watching this unfold, it was history, the collapse of a carefully crafted image, replaced with the raw, undeniable truth. This wasn't just a ruling. It was the final collapse of an empire built on silence and manipulation, brought down by courage, evidence, and truth that refused to be buried. What we just witnessed wasn't only a courtroom battle, it was the ending of a story that had been building for over a decade. The silence that once defined Meri shattered. Christine's courage cut through years of gaslighting. Janelle's steady facts stripped away the illusions. And finally, the judge's ruling brought down the hammer on Kody and Robyn's so-called empire. For so long, this family tried to present themselves as united, faithful, and strong. But behind the cameras, there were secrets, sacrifices, and betrayals that no amount of spin could cover forever. The courtroom exposed what so many viewers had suspected: favoritism, financial manipulation, and broken trust. It was painful, but it was also powerful. Because in that room, women who had been silenced finally had their truth recognized. And friends, that's the part that hits hardest. This wasn't just about money. It was about dignity. About women refusing to be erased. About showing that even after years of being pushed aside, they still had the strength to stand, to speak, and to change the narrative. That moment matters, not just for them, but for everyone who's ever felt silenced in their own lives. Hi friends, I'm Sophia, and this is TLC's Sister Wives World. If you've stayed with me through this emotional journey, thank you. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you believe justice was finally served? Did the judge's ruling truly bring closure?
Or is this just the beginning of a new chapter? Drop your opinions in the comments, because this community is all about sharing and supporting each other. And if you don't want to miss the next twist in this story, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned. Because here, we'll keep following the truth wherever it leads. Kody and Robyn may have thought their empire was untouchable, but the truth proved otherwise. In the end, silence turned into thunder, and their control crumbled. And something tells me, this is far from over. Meri Brown had been silent for years, pushed aside, dismissed, and often portrayed as the wife who stayed in the shadows. She carried the weight of betrayal, while the world watched her family unravel on national television. But when she finally broke that silence, It didn't come in a soft interview or a vague social media post. It came in a courtroom, with her voice steady, her eyes clear, and her story impossible to ignore. What unfolded that day wasn't just testimony. It was the collapse of the empire Kody Brown and Robyn had worked so hard to build. The shock hit immediately. The number one point that gripped the room was the money. A staggering $1.2 million discrepancy that Meri revealed had been funneled away, concealed, and spun into lies that favored one household over the rest. That kind of money wasn't just about numbers on paper. It represented years of sacrifices, broken promises, and favoritism that tore at the very foundation of the Brown family. The courtroom became the stage where the truth no longer whispered. It thundered. And as Robyn broke down in tears and Kody tried desperately to defend himself, the judge's patience wore thin. Justice was closing in. Hi friends, I'm Sophia, and welcome back to TLC's Sister Wives World. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop your thought in the comments, and stay with me until the end. Because today, we're breaking down one of the most emotional, explosive, and revealing moments in Sister Wives history. This isn't just gossip. This is the truth finally being spoken after years of silence, control, and manipulation. And trust me, you'll want to hear every single word. Meri's breakthrough came first. For years, we saw her on the show carrying the quiet pain of being sidelined. From the catfishing scandal to the crumbling of her marriage, she often appeared to be the one who endured silently, while Kody poured his energy and resources into Robyn. But in the courtroom, Meri was no longer the discarded wife. She stood tall, finally naming the betrayal out loud. She spoke about how promises of shared homes and financial security turned into empty words. She exposed how money that was supposed to benefit all four wives mysteriously ended up creating comfort for Robyn's household, while the rest struggled. And she didn't stop there. Meri described the emotional manipulation that came with it, how she was pressured to stay loyal, to keep the family image intact, while knowing deep down that the sacrifices she made were never acknowledged. Her voice didn't shake with anger. It carried the weight of truth, and that was more powerful than any outburst could have been. The courtroom listened. Even the judge leaned in, recognizing that this wasn't just marital conflict. This was betrayal woven into the very structure of their so-called family unity. But if Meri lit the match, Christine brought the explosion. Christine, who had already broken free from Kody in one of the most shocking exits the show had ever documented, entered that courtroom with fire in her eyes. Viewers know Christine as the one who finally said, "Enough is enough." She had endured years of neglect, of watching Kody prioritize Robyn, of being told to her needs didn't matter. And when she spoke, her testimony turned what could have been dismissed as emotional into something undeniable. Christine revealed specific instances: money meant for family property in Coyote Pass being redirected, children's needs brushed aside while Robyn's home received upgrades, and the constant pattern of Kody protecting Robyn at everyone else's expense. But what shook the room even more was when Christine confirmed she had proof. A recording, captured during one of their family discussions, where Kody openly admitted that Robyn's security and comfort came first because she was the obedient one. That moment hit like a hammer. It wasn't just favoritism. It was intent. Robyn's tears flowed uncontrollably as Christine spoke, but this time, no one saw her as the victim. For years, Sister Wives fans watched her cry on screen, often in moments that shielded her from criticism. But here, in the courtroom, those tears couldn't protect her. They only underscored the weight of what Christine revealed. This wasn't accidental. It was a system designed to benefit her, while the others were left with scraps. And then came Janelle. If Meri brought emotion and Christine brought fire, Janelle brought the receipts. Known for her practicality and calm demeanor, Janelle had long been the one handling budgets and financial plans. If anyone understood where the money went, it was her. And when she took the stand, the courtroom shifted. You could almost feel everyone bracing for the cold, undeniable truth. Janelle laid out documents, bank statements, and timelines. She showed how shared resources that should have gone toward joint projects or multiple households were funneled instead into Robyn's security, her home, her lifestyle. Every figure matched, every contract supported her claims. And while Kody tried to interrupt, rolling his eyes and dismissing her as dramatic, the judge Sempon hut him down. This wasn't drama. This was evidence. Her words carried a double blow. Not only did she prove the financial favoritism, she also described how it felt to live under that imbalance. Janelle spoke of trying to stretch budgets, of watching her children struggle with uncertainty, all while seeing Robyn's side of the family flourish. And when she admitted that staying wasn't about love anymore, but about survival, it was chilling, because it showed just how deep the betrayal ran. By the time Janelle stepped down, the courtroom wasn't just convinced. It was silent. The picture was complete. Meri's heartbreak, Christine's fire, and Janelle's proof. Together, their voices dismantled everything Kody had built around Robyn. And then, the climax came. The judge delivered the final strike. His words were direct, sharp, and cutting. He summarized the evidence, the $1.2 million discrepancy, the favoritism, the financial manipulation, and called it what it was: reckless, unjust, and destructive. Looking directly at Kody, the judge said his behavior had undermined the very foundation of fairness and trust he claimed to uphold.